issue is, repeatedly, even when I talked to the various providers, Kessler Center was one, but really they're trying to meet his needs. He was not able to be safe.
I was thinking back, and I know that I probably am overstepping what I should be talking about here, but I was thinking back when I read the reports of the takedowns. I mean, it just seemed to me so much. Well, we took him down, we used a two-person standing takedown, we laid him on the ground, we held him like this, we held him like that, just the detail of like how we took this child, two people to take down, and I understand, he's a strong kid, and he's, there have been things where he's done things in the past where, somebody's gotten hurt, things like this, but just like this, this list of how we take this kid down, and to me, I've not ever used my hands on a person in that kind of way, so it's difficult for me to understand that,
It would be difficult to understand if you haven't been in the situation. But when somebody is that dysregulated, one of the things I believe they were trying to do is make sure that people are very clear about what moves they use.
Right.
That's why it's written.
Yeah, and that's why he was battered and
it was not to say,
I know it's not bragging.
they're not trying to, they're trying to say, these are the methods we use, because what they really, most people do not want to do a physical intervention. That is the last thing they want to do.
It just seemed like the fact that it was resorted to that many times a day, and I'm not with this student,
Correct.
but I'm just saying that, they chose not to do this in one setting.
What they tried to do is doing prevention initially, because nobody in any of the settings wants to ever do that.
oh my God, Dad, they took away all his supports and services. They took away the assistive technology. And Chuck, my point is, we need to change this IEP before he ever steps anywhere. We need to change this. It is not correct. It does not represent Sam. He also should have assistive technology. He should have some success in my home with someone who is very, very trained. Once he gets the success, you're going to see an improvement in his self-esteem. His self-esteem is in the basement. They hurt him. I think this meeting is over.
Well, I'm going to make a decision then.
No, we are going to a fair hearing.
Well,
Here
You
is...
have to have a decision to
to do, okay, thank you. Make a decision so I can appeal, please.
Can I mention something that Deb would like? She likes some of the wording from the prior IEPs that is pretty descriptive and
Sorry.
accurate.
take a breath.
Prior.
Okay.
And prior Greece IEPs. The language changed so much, and this really bothers her a lot. And some of it, and also the pieces like this, full-scale IQ being, 52. Things like this, you read the language and you go and you meet Sam, and
there are very scattered things with his IQ.
Right.
I agree.
But there is also, within the standardized testing, that's what they came up with.
Is it appropriate to put...
Setting where he was at home.
Yeah.
It was not a stressful
He was
setting.
non-compliant during the
Being
testing.
compliant at that time.
He was not being compliant at the time. So also...
So they have to give it a score.
That actually was not...
Well, he's not a 52, Linda. He's not a 52. How can he shoot on manual and control all the light sources in his camera by himself and be able to produce the work he does with a score of 52? How can he have a job on a farm and get paid $10 an hour and do the job appropriately without any assistance and have a score of 52?
It's just like the test that I did. He scored low because he wouldn't do it. It's a standardized test where we have to give a score whether he can do it or not. So the representation is this is what he was able to work at the moment of the test. Not his... Right, not his...
It's a one-day study.
Right.
Exactly. And
So it shouldn't, that's why we shouldn't take it...
Right.
Shouldn't take one score as his abilities.
And
But
a
have
complicated
to-
kid like this,
Right.
and believe me, I mean, unfortunately I've seen so many kids for over years. Their diagnoses change. They've had every diagnosis. By the time they're 16, they've had every diagnosis in the book. They've had stuff have changed. So what we're talking about with complicated kids is constant reevaluation. And yes, point in time. And with the mental health stuff, absolutely will affect this kind of testing. So that, I think Deb's point around this is, it's not a solid 52. Let's look at this kid. Dan and I even looked at the past testing. If they vary by scores over time, you know that means something. IQs don't change. So it's the testing that's the challenge. So we got to keep, that's going to be an ongoing thing for this young man, probably for most of his life. So that's just my point on that. And as far as, and I don't want to get into, we can test this kid to death. But we do need to constantly be assessing it. Sorry.
I think, if I may, we're putting the cart before the horse. It's my experience, from my experience in crisis intervention with children, what they go through, any type of fearful trauma of any kind, threatening actions, stays with them. It doesn't go away. And I don't think we're addressing that. The psychological part of what's happened to this young man is, wow, it's beyond the scope that I've ever dealt with.
Correct. And that's part of the treatment stuff I'm talking about.
So I'm thinking that we really have to get his mindset out of what happened in the past, but we can't do that. We don't have the talent to do that. We aren't professionals that can deal with that psychological response that the minute he senses he's being threatened, he's going to go off. That is what needs to be dealt with first, before we can deal with, what he's going to do, where he's going to go, how he's going to do it.
But you have to be able to do that in a way that's going to cost most of his life, so that he can self-regulate enough to be able to be successful in the community.
He is successful in the community. He is successful in multiple areas in the community. He has been hired to do senior photography and gone and done an amazing job. This kid is an amazing kid. He is amazing, and he does the most amazing things. He has the concept that he's not good enough, he's not smart enough, and that has been taught to him in every single program he has been in.
One of the things, Dan, that I ran this by some clinical folks, and again, we're not, you guys know this kid much better than us, but what we do know is sometimes with kids who are hard to serve is our tendency is to escalate the interventions and to make them tighter, and they become more and more restricted. And for a lot of kids, the more restricted it becomes, the more they act out. And there was some sense of that with Barb Mitchell, someone I talked to in our Office of Mental Health, around, and without talking about program stuff, that sometimes you need to loosen up for some kids. We watch, it's always more and more restricted when it's not always what the kid needs. We do it for safety reasons, exactly what you're talking about. I appreciate that. I understand that. Again, I'm not giving you any good options, but sometimes, the plan that you started going with is sometimes loosening up the pressure and the attention and all that sometimes helps them.
Chuck,
Good.
that's what I tried to do when he went to BOCES.
Right.
It was a less restrictive type set. It was in a general ed middle school.
Right.
That's the other
What was that program there? Was it?
It was 12-1-1.
12-1-4,
geared
for kids with autism or...
Kids with autism, kids with developmental disabilities.
Okay, all right.
Not geared for somebody with trauma.
Right.
But a social worker was affiliated with that who had multiple years of experience.
Right, got it. Yep.
So it was a program who really did not talk about the trauma, but really talked about where his skills are at.
Okay.
Continue to have multiple breakdowns.
Right. Okay.
Putting himself and others at risk.
That's right.
That's
that combo.
I agree with you, and many times we'll look at if we could go least restrictive, if that's really, is it the continued pressure that's causing the acting out? But when we tried that, it wasn't that.
Right. Okay.
So that's where I felt that we made it a thing.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm hearing is, to make a decision is, we want to look at the tutoring. Is it meeting your needs? Charlotte, I may have to find out if we can find somebody who's a little more tech savvy.
It's fine. It's fine.
Thank you, Sean. But I'm going to look into that on a temporary basis. The long-term plan is I'm going to have to look at a more restrictive setting, which will be a residential.
I disagree. Here's my independent, the thing for the independent eval.
Thank you. So that would be my recommendation, continuing with tutoring. We're going to look at a more tech-savvy person, but we will have to look at a residential setting because I don't have any other.
When you say residential setting, are you saying you put Sam in a foster care scenario?
No, I cannot do foster care. It would be like a hillside, a St. Joseph's Villa.
So he would be taken out of my home. That is what they're saying. They are trying to take my child out of my home.
I don't see that being proactive for Sam. When a young man or any young child approaches you and says, I need to change my life. I know I need to change my life. I hate my life. As a professional, to stand there and hear that and not want to cry, it's very hard to do. Sam, I don't feel pulling Sam out of his house is gonna make things better for Sam. It's gonna exacerbate the whole problem. It's gonna make things worse.
It is not something I do lightly. It is not something that I look at lightly. Or when I cannot.
Dan, do you understand
We're just trying to...
that he needs parents' love, Tim's and my love? We do not have him tearing the house apart. I am not afraid of my safety. You are not taking my child out of my house. You're not. You're not. So I'm disagreeing. We'll go forward with the fair hearing. We will build our case that Sam is not leaving my home. He's not leaving Tim's home. He's not. So you can try, but you're not going to be successful because I will go to the ends of the earth to make sure that my child stays in my home where we love him, Tim and I. We nurture him. We provide him with activities. Tim takes them out. He wants to take them skiing, which he's looking forward to. Sam loves both of his parents, Tim and me. We are his parents, and we will stay his caregiver until he's 21.
That doesn't change.
No, it doesn't, Dan. But you need to understand that you will never take my child out of my home. Ever. So we're on. I've made the announcement. We're going forward in a fair hearing. You build your case. We'll build